Tonight, as you lie safely in bed, surrounded by locked doors, soft lights, and quiet certainty, it is easy to forget something important. For most of human history, night was not peaceful. It was not comforting. It was not safe. For ordinary people, farmers, mothers, children, apprentices, servants, the moment the sun disappeared was the moment fear quietly arrived. Not the screaming kind of fear. Not panic. But a slow, constant awareness that darkness changed everything. Tonight, we will not tell the story of kings or warriors. We will listen to the quiet lives of ordinary people. And how they learned to survive fear. Every single night. So slow your breathing. Let the world fade gently away. And travel with me into a time when night was never empty. Only waiting. When the sun went away. As the final light of day slipped below the horizon, an ordinary village began to change. Not dramatically. Quietly. Shadows lengthened across dirt paths. Smoke curled low from cooking fires. The sound of tools faded as hands grew tired and hurried. Because everyone knew the same truth. Once the sun disappeared, time became precious. In medieval Europe, night was not measured in hours, it was measured in risks. There were no streetlights. No police. No emergency calls. Only darkness. Families gathered indoors early, often long before modern people would consider it bedtime. Doors were pulled shut. Wooden bars slid into place. Animals were brought closer to the home, not for warmth, but for safety. Even in small villages, people feared what moved unseen. Wolves. Strangers. Fire. Illness. And sometimes, each other. The night was a place where normal rules softened. And ordinary people knew it. The fear that lived in silence. Fear did not shout in the medieval night. It whispered. It lived in small sounds, the creak of timber, the wind brushing straw roofs, the distant bark of a dog suddenly going quiet. Ordinary people slept lightly. They had to. Most families shared a single room. Parents slept beside children. Apprentices slept near masters. Servants slept close enough to hear commands even in the dark. Privacy did not exist, but safety came from closeness. And yet, even surrounded by others, fear lingered. Because darkness hid intentions. A knocked door after sunset was rarely good news. Why night was dangerous for ordinary lives. During the day, communities functioned on visibility. You could see who was coming. You could recognize faces. You could read intentions. At night, all of that vanished. Travelers avoided night journeys unless desperate. Roads disappeared into blackness. Forests became unfamiliar, even to those who knew them well. Ordinary people feared the unknown more than the known. And the unknown thrived after sunset. Criminal acts, small thefts, quiet violence, were more likely under cover of darkness. Not because people were worse. But because night removed witnesses. Even animals behaved differently. Livestock could panic. Dogs could misjudge sounds. Horses startled easily. Every unexpected noise carried meaning. Sleeping was never deep. Modern sleep is deep and long. Medieval sleep was broken. Most people practiced what historians now call segmented sleep. They slept for a few hours. Woke naturally in the middle of the night. Then slept again until dawn. This waking period was not a flaw. It was survival. During this quiet hour, people checked fires, listened for sounds, prayed softly, or simply waited in stillness. Fear was managed, not eliminated. They accepted it. The comfort of routine. Routine was the greatest weapon against night fear. Doors were locked the same way every evening. Fires were banked carefully. Candles were counted, too many burned meant danger. Stories were told quietly. Not exciting stories. Familiar ones. Because familiarity soothed the mind. Children learned early that bedtime was not playful, it was preparation. They learned to be quiet. To listen. To notice when silence changed. Night prayers and quiet beliefs. Religion was deeply tied to night survival. People prayed not for victory, but for uneventful mornings. Simple prayers. Protect the house. Protect the children. Let the fire stay contained. Let nothing come to the door. Faith gave structure to fear. Even those who doubted still followed rituals. Because rituals made the night feel ordered. Listening became a skill. Ordinary people learned to listen with precision. They knew the difference between wind and footsteps. Between animals settling and animals fleeing. Silence itself became information. A dog that stopped barking suddenly was more frightening than one that barked endlessly. Fear sharpened awareness. And awareness kept people alive. The long wait until morning. Night was endured, not enjoyed. Time moved slowly. Candles burned down. Fires dimmed. Breath fogged in cold rooms. People lay still, listening to others breathe. Waiting. Because dawn meant safety. Dawn meant visibility. Dawn meant rules returned. And yet, they slept. Despite all of this, ordinary people slept. Not because fear was gone, but because life required rest. They trusted habits. They trusted closeness. They trusted that most nights, nothing happened. Fear was always present. But it did not control them. It trained them. Closing into the night. As we move deeper into this story, we will explore how fear shaped homes, neighborhoods, and entire cities after dark. How ordinary people adapted, not with strength or weapons, but with patience, awareness, and quiet resilience. For now, let the night settle around you. You are safe. You are warm. And the fears of the past can remain only as distant whispers. Sleep gently. Fear inside the home. When night fully settled, the danger did not disappear just because people were indoors. For ordinary families, the home itself became the final line of defense. Most medieval homes were small. Very small. A single room. Low ceilings. Thick wooden beams darkened by smoke and time. There were no hallways to retreat into. No private bedrooms. No place to escape fear. Everything happened in the same space. Cooking. Sleeping. Waiting. As the fire dimmed and shadows climbed the walls, the home transformed. During the day, it was familiar. At night, it felt different. The fire that gave comfort and threat. The hearth was the heart of the home. It gave warmth. It cooked food. It pushed back the cold darkness. But it was also dangerous. Fire never truly slept. Ordinary people learned to fear it quietly. Before sleep, coals were banked carefully. Ashes were spread just enough to keep warmth alive but not enough to let sparks escape. A single mistake could mean everything burning while the family slept. And yet, extinguishing the fire completely was not an option. Without it, the night became colder. Dampness crept in. Illness followed. So people slept beside controlled danger. Every night. Doors that could only delay. Doors were thick, heavy, and simple. They were not strong enough to stop a determined intruder. They were meant to delay. A wooden bar across the door was less about strength and more about sound. If someone pushed, it would creak. If someone forced it, it would crash. That sound was the warning. Time to wake. Time to shout. Time to survive together. Windows were small, high, and covered with shutters or cloth. Glass was rare. Light leaking out at night was dangerous. It announced presence. So homes became dark early. Sleeping close was not comfort, it was strategy. Families slept pressed together. Parents closest to the door. Children between bodies. Tools nearby, not weapons, but familiar objects. A knife for cutting bread. A staff used for walking. A heavy pot. These were not signs of paranoia. They were preparation. Fear lived quietly beside practicality. The sounds that made hearts stop. At night, every sound mattered. A mouse in the thatch could sound like a stranger. The wind shifting the roof could sound like footsteps. Wood expanding in the cold could sound like someone breathing. Ordinary people did not panic. They froze. Listening was the first response. Only after understanding the sound did movement come. Fear taught patience. Children learned fear early. Children were not shielded from fear. They learned it naturally. They learned not to cry at night unless necessary. They learned to stay still when told. They learned that darkness demanded different behavior. Lullabies were not cheerful. They were slow. Repetitive. Predictable. Familiar words created safety. Illness was a night visitor. Sickness felt worse at night. Fevers rose. Coughs echoed. Breathing sounded louder in the dark. Without doctors nearby, families listened closely. Every breath mattered. The night stretched illnesses longer. Fear did not sleep when someone was sick. Superstition lived indoors. Beliefs filled the gaps that knowledge could not. Charms hung near doors. Marks were carved into beams. Prayers were whispered before sleep. Even the skeptical followed these habits. Not because they fully believed, but because doing something felt better than doing nothing. Fear needs action. Even symbolic action. The quiet agreement. Inside every home was an unspoken agreement. We will protect each other. We will wake if something is wrong. We will survive until morning. That agreement was stronger than fear. It was renewed every night. Waiting in the dark. As candles burned low, families lay still. Breathing slowed. Eyes adjusted. Fear faded. Not because danger was gone, but because the body learned to rest inside uncertainty. This was survival. Not heroic. Not dramatic. Just human. Drifting toward sleep. Eventually, exhaustion won. Fear softened into background noise. The house settled. The night passed, slowly. And when dawn finally came, it felt earned. In the next part, we will step outside the home. Into the sounds of streets, forests, and open darkness. Where fear moved freely and quietly. Sleep gently. Sounds in the dark. When the door was closed and the fire dimmed, the world outside did not disappear. It waited. Beyond the wooden walls and shuttered windows, the night lived freely. For ordinary people, the outside world after sunset was no longer familiar territory. The same road walked every day became something else entirely when light vanished. Shapes lost meaning. Distances felt wrong. Sound replaced sight. Why sound ruled the night? In darkness, ears became more important than eyes. People learned to recognize the night by sound. The steady chirping of insects meant calm. Wind through trees had a rhythm. Water moving nearby was predictable. But anything that broke these patterns caused fear. A sudden silence. A single footstep where none should be. A cough carried too far in the still air. Ordinary people knew the difference between normal night sounds and something that did not belong. Footsteps that had no shape. Footsteps were the most feared sound. During the day, footsteps were harmless. At night, they meant intent. People paused mid-breath when they heard them. Were they heavy or light? Fast or slow? One person or many? The mind filled darkness with meaning. Often, the sound passed. Sometimes, it stopped too close. The forest was never empty. Forests were not silent at night. They breathed. Branches snapped under unseen weight. Leaves rustled without wind. Eyes reflected faint light. Ordinary people avoided forests after sunset. Those who lived near them learned their voices. An animal moving normally had a pattern. A frightened animal did not. Predators changed the sound of the forest. So did humans. Dogs knew before people did. Dogs were the night's early warning system. A relaxed dog slept. A tense dog listened. A barking dog meant something was wrong, but a dog that suddenly went silent was worse. People trusted animals more than their own senses. Animals felt fear first. Night watchers and distant calls. In towns and cities, night watchmen walked slow paths. They carried lanterns, not to light the streets, but to show presence. Their calls echoed softly. All is well. These words were not always true. But hearing them calmed people. It reminded them they were not alone. The space between houses. The areas between homes were the most dangerous. Narrow alleys. Empty yards. Unlit corners. Sound behaved strangely there. Voices echoed. Steps multiplied. Silence felt thick. Ordinary people stayed close to walls if forced outside. Open space felt exposed. Fear of the unseen. Not everything feared was real. Stories filled the darkness. Spirits. Witches. Shadows that followed. But fear did not care about truth. It responded to uncertainty. Believing something was out there made people careful. And careful people survived longer. Traveling at night. Night travel was slow and tense. Torches revealed little. Lanterns attracted attention. People listened more than they moved. Stopping often. Waiting. Letting sounds pass before continuing. The silence that followed danger. After fear passed, silence, nothing moved. Nothing changed. The night continued. And ordinary people survived it, again. In the next part, we will meet those who stayed awake when others slept. The night watchers, guards, and quiet protectors of darkness. Until then, rest gently. Those who stayed awake. When most ordinary people finally surrendered to sleep, not everyone closed their eyes. Some remained awake. Not because they were fearless. But because someone had to listen. In every village, town, and city, there were individuals whose nights belonged to everyone else. They were not heroes. They were not celebrated. They were simply present. The quiet purpose of staying awake. Night watchmen did not expect danger every hour. Most nights were uneventful. That was the point. Their job was not to fight, it was to notice. To walk slowly. To listen carefully. To be seen just enough. Ordinary people slept more easily knowing someone moved outside. Even if they never saw them. Lantern light and moving shadows. A watchman's lantern did not illuminate the night. It carved small islands of visibility. Light moved with the watchman, revealing cobblestones, doorways, and corners for brief moments, then releasing them back into darkness. This movement mattered. A still light invited attention. A moving light suggested awareness. And awareness discouraged trouble. The rhythm of the watch. Watchmen walked predictable paths. Not because routine was safe, but because unpredictability frightened residents. Hearing footsteps at the same hour, in the same place, calmed the sleeping mind. It meant order still existed. Night had rules. Calls in the darkness. Many watchmen announced the hour. Not loudly. Soft enough to carry, but not to invite. All is well. The phrase was ritual, not fact. Even when things were not well, the call continued. Because panic spread faster than danger. The weight of responsibility. Staying awake carried a cost. Cold seeped in. Fatigue dulled focus. Loneliness pressed heavily. Most watchmen worked alone. Silence became a companion. They learned to live inside it. What watchmen feared? They did not fear darkness itself. They feared change. Not confront. Shouts carried farther at night. So did bells. Communities responded together. The fragile line between safety and chaos. Most safety depended on timing. Early warning prevented disaster. A few minutes could save homes. A delayed response could destroy lives. Watchmen knew this. It kept them alert. The human side of the watch. Watchmen were ordinary people. They worried about families sleeping nearby. They fought sleep with movement and habit. Some prayed quietly while walking. Some talked to themselves. Anything to stay present. The long hours before dawn. The deepest fear came just before morning. Fatigue peaked. Cold was sharpest. This was when mistakes happened. This was when vigilance mattered most. The moment the sky changed. Dawn did not arrive suddenly. The sky lightened slowly. Shadows softened. Birds returned. The watch ended not with relief, but release. Another night survived. The invisible gift. Most people never thanked watchmen. They did not need to. Safety was invisible when it worked. The night passed quietly. And that was enough. Rest returning to the world. As watchmen returned home, others woke. Life resumed. Fear retreated. Not gone, but resting. Waiting for night again. In the next part, we will explore how cities themselves were built to manage fear after dark, walls, gates, and rules that shaped night life. For now, allow the quiet to settle. You are safe. Sleep gently. Cities built for fear. Cities were not designed only for daylight. They were shaped by night. Every wall, gate, and narrow street carried the memory of fear after sunset. For ordinary people, the city itself became a shelter. But also a reminder that danger was always near. Walls that closed the world. City walls were not symbols of pride. They were boundaries of survival. At sunset, gates closed. Not slowly. Not casually. Deliberately. Late arrivals were locked out. Not out of cruelty. But fear. One unknown person could bring chaos. Ordinary people learned to live by the rhythm of the gates. Day meant movement. Night meant containment. The sound of the gate. The closing of city gates was unforgettable. Heavy wood. Iron fittings. Deep echoes. The sound meant safety for those inside. It also meant finality. Once shut, the city became a sealed world. Streets designed to confuse. City streets were narrow. Not by accident. They slowed invaders. They trapped sound. They limited speed. For ordinary people, these streets felt safe. For strangers, they felt threatening. Fear was engineered into stone. Corners that watched back. Corners were everywhere. Short sightlines meant nothing could approach unseen. People hugged walls at night. Open spaces felt dangerous. The city forced closeness. Curfews and quiet rules. Night was regulated. Curfews limited movement. Lantern laws controlled light. Silence was enforced. Not for comfort, but control. Ordinary people accepted these rules willingly. Rules meant order. Order reduced fear. Markets fell silent. Markets that buzzed during the day became empty at night. Stalls closed. Goods vanished. The absence of life felt heavier than noise. Silence amplified fear. Church bells and time. Church bells marked the night. They measured time. They reminded people that night passed in stages. Fear was easier to manage when time was structured. Fires and watchtowers. Watchtowers rose above rooftops. Their purpose was not to observe enemies, but smoke. Fire was the greatest urban fear. A single spark could erase everything. Living inside the walls. Life inside city walls was crowded. Privacy was limited. But fear was shared. Shared fear became manageable. The comfort of numbers. Cities survived because people were close. Noise carried. Help arrived faster. Ordinary people trusted crowds more than solitude. The night economy. Some people still worked. Bakers. Watchmen. Midwives. They moved quietly. Purpose made night less frightening. When the gates opened, morning did not bring celebration. It brought routine. Gates opened. Life flowed outward. Fear retreated, temporarily. Cities as living shields. Cities were not just places. They were systems designed to survive fear. Stone by stone. Rule by rule. Night by night. Settling into the city night. As darkness returned, cities prepared again. Gates closed. Lights dimmed. Ordinary people retreated inward. The city breathed. Fear rested. Waiting. In the next part, we will slow even further. Into the mind itself. How ordinary people learn to live with fear without breaking. For now, let the city sleep. You are safe. Living with fear. Fear did not only live outside the door. It lived inside the mind. For ordinary people, fear was not an emergency, it was a condition of life. They woke with it. They worked with it. They slept beside it. And somehow, they learned to live. Fear as a daily companion. Fear was not dramatic. It did not arrive suddenly. It was constant, like weather. People did not ask how to eliminate fear. They asked how to carry it. Ordinary people measured risk quietly. They chose paths carefully. They avoided unnecessary movement at night. Fear shaped decisions without demanding attention. The mind at night. Night amplified thoughts. Darkness removed distraction. Memories grew louder. Concerns returned. People replayed conversations. They imagined futures. Fear was most active when the body rested. So people developed mental rituals. Prayer, counting, and repetition. Some prayed. Some counted breaths. Some repeated familiar phrases. Repetition calmed the mind. It narrowed focus. It slowed fear. These were early forms of mindfulness. They did not call it that. They called it survival. Dreams that reflected fear. Dreams carried the day into night. People dreamed of falling. Of being chased. Of losing family. Dreams were not dismissed. They were considered messages. Fear shaped sleep itself. Talking about fear, quietly. Fear was rarely discussed openly. But it was shared indirectly. Through stories. Through warnings. Through habits passed down. Children learned fear without explanation. They watched adults. They copied behaviors. Accepting what could not be controlled. Not all fear was useful. Some dangers could not be avoided. Illness. Fire. Death. People learned acceptance. Acceptance reduced suffering. Fear softened when control was released. Strength in routine. Routine anchored the mind. Same meals. Same prayers. Same bedtime. Predictability reduced uncertainty. Uncertainty fed fear. Humor and small comforts. Even in fear, people laughed. Quiet jokes. Small smiles. These moments reminded them they were alive. Fear did not erase joy. It sharpened it. Sleep as trust. To sleep was an act of trust. Trust in walls. Trust in neighbors. Trust in morning. Every night, people chose sleep despite fear. That choice mattered. Fear did not win. Fear shaped lives, but it did not control them. People loved. They raised children. They planned futures. Fear became background noise. The gentle lesson of history. Ordinary people survived not by defeating fear, but by living alongside it. And so can we. In the final part, we will slowly return to the present. And leave fear where it belongs, in the past. For now, rest. You are safe. Living with fear. Fear did not only live outside the door. It lived inside the mind. For ordinary people, fear was not an emergency, it was a condition of life. They woke with it. They worked with it. They slept beside it. And somehow, they learned to live. Fear as a daily companion. Fear was not dramatic. It did not arrive suddenly. It was constant, like weather. People did not ask how to eliminate fear. They asked how to carry it. Ordinary people measured risk quietly. They chose paths carefully. They avoided unnecessary movement at night. Fear shaped decisions without demanding attention. The mind at night. Night amplified thoughts. Darkness removed distraction. Memories grew louder. Concerns returned. People replayed conversations. They imagined futures. Fear was most active when the body rested. So people developed mental rituals. Prayer, counting, and repetition. Some prayed. Some counted breaths. Some repeated familiar phrases. Repetition calmed the mind. It narrowed focus. It slowed fear. These were early forms of mindfulness. They did not call it that. They called it survival. Dreams that reflected fear. Dreams carried the day into night. People dreamed of falling. Of being chased. Of losing family. Dreams were not dismissed. They were considered messages. Fear shaped sleep itself. Talking about fear, quietly. Fear was rarely discussed openly. But it was shared indirectly. Through stories. Through warnings. Through habits passed down. Children learned fear without explanation. They watched adults. They copied behaviors. Accepting what could not be controlled. Not all fear was useful. Some dangers could not be avoided. Illness. Fire. Death. People learned acceptance. Acceptance reduced suffering. Fear softened when control was released. Strength in routine. Routine anchored the mind. Same meals. Same prayers. Same bedtime. Predictability reduced uncertainty. Uncertainty fed fear. humor and small comforts. Even in fear, people laughed. Quiet jokes. Small smiles. These moments reminded them they were alive. Fear did not erase joy. It sharpened it. Sleep as trust. To sleep was an act of trust. Trust in walls. Trust in neighbors. Trust in morning. Every night, people chose sleep despite fear. That choice mattered. Fear did not win. Fear shaped lives, but it did not control them. People loved. They raised children. They planned futures. Fear became background noise. The gentle lesson of history. Ordinary people survived not by defeating fear, but by living alongside it. And so can we. In the final part, we will slowly return to the present. And leave fear where it belongs, in the past. For now, rest. You are safe. When morning came. Morning did not arrive with celebration. It arrived quietly. For ordinary people, dawn was not dramatic, it was relief. The darkness thinned. Shadows softened. The world slowly returned to shape. Night released its hold without resistance. The first signs of safety. The first bird calls were not background sound. They were signals. Life was returning. Predators retreated. Movement became visible again. Fear loosened its grip. Light changed everything. Light restored distance. What felt close at night appeared far in the morning. What sounded threatening became ordinary. Fear shrank in daylight. Doors opened again. Bars slid back. Shutters opened. Fresh air entered homes. The act of opening a door felt symbolic. Night had passed. Morning routines resumed. Water was fetched. Fires were rebuilt. Food was prepared. Routine returned. Fear faded into memory. Conversations returned. People spoke more freely. Laughter reappeared. Stories were shared. Night fears became daylight lessons. The body recovered. Sleep, even broken, restored strength. People moved with purpose. Fear had not exhausted them, it had taught them. Children learned from morning. Children saw that night ended. Fear was temporary. Morning always came. This lesson stayed with them. Preparing for the next night. Even in daylight, people prepared. Doors were checked. Fires were managed. Fear informed preparation, but did not dominate life. Life continued. Fields were worked. Markets reopened. Life expanded outward. Night retreated. The quiet victory. Survival was not heroic. It was consistent. Ordinary people survived fear by enduring it. Every morning was proof. Returning to the present. Tonight, you sleep differently. With light at a switch. With doors that lock securely. With distance from the fears of the past. And yet, the human response to fear remains. We listen. We prepare. We rest anyway. A gentle closing. As you drift toward sleep, remember. Fear has always existed. And so has resilience. You are part of that long, quiet story. Rest now. Morning will come. The quiet that remained. When the story of fear ended, silence did not disappear. It changed. For ordinary people, the quiet after night was different from the quiet before sleep. It was lighter. Less watchful. More forgiving. This was the quiet that followed survival. The memory of night. Even in daylight, night remained present. Not as fear, but as memory. People remembered which sounds woke them. Which prayers calmed them? Which routines protected them? Night taught lessons that daylight never forgot. Fear became wisdom. Over time, fear softened into understanding. People learned where danger lived, and where it did not. They learned that not every sound meant harm. Not every shadow hid threat. Fear sharpened judgment. Judgment improved survival. The night inside us. Those centuries passed, the human body remembered. We still listen in the dark. We still notice sudden silence. We still wake briefly at night for no clear reason. These habits are ancient. They are echoes. Modern safety, ancient minds. Today, we live surrounded by light and locks. But our minds remain careful. A noise wakes us. A shadow catches attention. This is not weakness. It is inheritance. Why these stories still matter? We listen to quiet history because it speaks gently. It reminds us that fear was never unique to us. Others carried it before. Others survived it nightly. And so will we. Rest is a human tradition. Sleep has always been an act of hope. Hope that the night will pass. Hope that morning will come. Every generation shares this trust. The calm after understanding. Understanding softens fear. When we know where fear comes from, it loses power. History gives that understanding. It turns fear into context. A shared human ending. Ordinary people survived not by escaping fear, but by continuing life alongside it. Eating. Loving. Sleeping. That is the quiet triumph of history. Letting the night be gentle. Now, the night around you is calm. Nothing is expected of you. No one needs you to listen. No one needs you to watch. You can rest. The deep reflections of night. When night finally surrendered and morning came, ordinary people carried with them more than just memories of darkness. They carried understanding. A quiet comprehension of life's fragility, and its resilience. Night shapes the mind. The hours spent awake, listening, or simply enduring shaped more than survival, they shaped perception. The mind learned patience. The mind learned observation. The mind learned calm in the face of uncertainty. Even centuries later, traces of this training remain in us. The echoes of routine. Daily habits were born from necessity. The act of lighting a fire, checking a door, or whispering a prayer was not mundane, it was deliberate. Routine carved order from chaos. And order softened fear. Quiet courage. Courage was not loud. It did not roar. It whispered. It lived in the simple acts of ordinary people. Keeping a child close while the wind rattled windows. Walking a street at midnight to reassure the neighborhood. Maintaining a small, steady fire despite exhaustion. Courage was persistent, subtle, and habitual. Lessons in listening. The most important skill of night was listening. Not just hearing, but discerning. Every creak, every whisper, every distant bark or wind-shaken branch told a story. Those who survived knew which sounds demanded attention, and which required calm. We inherit that skill in small ways. We notice too much or too little, without even thinking. Our ancestors trained our senses long before we were born. Fear as teacher. Fear was constant. But constant fear is not the same as panic. Fear teaches. It trains the mind, the body, and the spirit to notice, prepare, and act. It sharpens awareness without shouting. Ordinary people mastered fear not by fighting it, but by understanding it. The bond of community. Survival was never solitary. Families, neighbors, and communities became intertwined through shared vigilance. One person's watch ensured another could sleep. One small precaution protected many. This quiet interdependence allowed people to live without surrendering to terror. Night as teacher of life. Night shaped not only fear, but wisdom. It taught people the difference between what mattered and what did not. It taught them patience, carefulness, and the value of silence. And most of all, it taught endurance. The rhythm of fear and rest. Even today, we carry that rhythm. We sleep lightly at times. We wake briefly. We check the environment unconsciously. It is the echo of centuries where night was real, not fictional. Sleep was earned. Fear was acknowledged. Rest was deserved. A human legacy. By morning, the world appeared ordinary again. Yet every person who had survived the night carried a hidden strength. A small confidence that they could endure uncertainty, discomfort, and danger. And that quiet strength passed down through generations. Softly, imperceptibly, in the way we still respond to night. Inviting calm. As you lie in the present, remember. The night, once feared, can now be gentle. Your body knows it is safe. Your mind, trained by millennia of human experience, is prepared to rest. Fear is no longer a teacher tonight, it is a memory. The final breathing. Breathe slowly. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Let your heartbeat remind you of continuity, of survival, of life. The night is no longer a trial. It is a lullaby. Sleep, carrying the quiet. Sleep now, knowing that ordinary people before you endured the same darkness. They survived. You are safe. And in this quiet, the world waits patiently. Until dawn. The gentle closure and loop-friendly ending. The night has been long. It has been quiet, filled with whispers, shadows, and soft lessons from the lives of ordinary people. Now, as the final chapter unfolds, it is time to let the story rest, and to let yourself rest with it. The weight of the day that passed. Every night, ordinary people carried their daily burdens into darkness. Work, worry, hunger, and hope were all present as the sun disappeared. Yet they endured, not because they had no fear, but because they understood how to live alongside it. The same truth holds for us. Even if the modern world is brighter, safer, and faster, our minds carry the echoes of those who watched the night so we could sleep. The quiet legacy of survival. In every creaking door, every rustling leaf, every faint sound in the dark, there is a story. A story of patience. A story of alertness. A story of calm courage. By surviving fear each night, ordinary people created a rhythm for life, a rhythm we inherit without even noticing. Preparing the mind to rest. As you lay here now, your body and mind can follow that rhythm. Notice your breathing. Let your chest rise and fall naturally. Feel your limbs relax. Your mind can let go of worry. Your thoughts can drift slowly like smoke from a fire. Embracing the gentle darkness. The darkness outside your window is no longer threatening. It is soft. It is patient. It is a companion. Like the ordinary people of the past, you can rest. You do not need to listen for danger. You do not need to move or protect anyone. The night has nothing to demand from you. The final lessons of history. The lives of ordinary people teach us. Fear is natural. Vigilance is human. Rest is necessary. But also, fear can exist without controlling life. Life can continue quietly and fully, even in darkness. These lessons are yours tonight. A slow return to yourself. Imagine the small comforts of those who slept before. Warm fires glowing dimly. Wooden doors barred securely. Families pressed close together. The gentle hum of a village at rest. Let that image fill your mind. You are part of that continuity. You are safe. You are protected by history itself. The softest breath. Take one slow, deep breath. Hold it for a moment. Exhale gently. Feel the tension of the day, the week, or even the world release with it. Another slow breath. Another gentle exhale. Let each breath carry the night further, making room only for calm, for warmth, for quiet. The loop-friendly drift. If your mind wanders, that is natural. Return to your breath. Return to the gentle story of ordinary people surviving the night. Imagine the rhythm of footsteps, the whisper of leaves, the distant glow of fires. Everything is safe. Everything is still. Everything waits patiently until morning. The final whisper. Sleep now. Let the quiet embrace you. Let history, patience, and the wisdom of ordinary people guide your rest. The night is soft. The night is gentle. And morning will come.